Welcome to the #1 running podcast as voted by our wives. Join Dan, Brett, and Joe as we share our experiences along the trail, as well as our tips and gear that have helped us on our journey. Let us accompany you to the finish line, and may there be ice cream when you arrive. This is 0 to 0.
Nice. That was smooth, man. You're like a professional. Like if a professional is somebody that doesn't get paid for it and has no audience, then you are a professional.
How's running been going recently? What's changed, what's new, or what's the same over the past couple of weeks for you guys? We'll start with you, Joe.
I have finally gotten back to some what I would consider respectable mileage, perhaps. Respectable in my own eyes because nobody else is evaluating this. You guys are forgiving and don't judge me about how much running I do or don't do. But I've had, over the last 4 weeks, 3 or 4 long runs that we've all run together. And I think the lowest one of those was 10 miles. Is that right? And we just did 12 and a half the other day. As Dan said in our last episode, that running, when you take a break from it, doesn't just instantly disappear. That stuff that you've built up. And so I got to appreciate that a little bit more fully over the last month or so, especially the last week. I have done 0 speed work since the half marathon at the end of October. So I'm looking forward to getting back to a speed workout this week. I'm going to do one. I've got a tempo run somewhere around Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll see. I did not run today like I was planning to, but I let life be excuses for me not to do it. But in general, it's been going well. Little to no pain out of just running soreness. And my wife appreciates me being gone on Saturday for a couple hours to start the day.
So how about you, Dan?
For me, last couple weeks, same thing. I kind of picked up a little bit. I had a real long week that first week we did the long run. But I've been back up a little bit, back to like 20 to somewhere between 20 to 25 miles a week. My mileage for the month is I've already probably 20 miles more than I got last month. So I was glad to see that. And if I do good this week, I should have my highest month of the year. So kind of picking back up. Same thing though. I also want to start doing more speed work. Haven't been doing that. I did like one in the last, since the half, I've probably done one speed work interval workout. So I'm going to start implementing that a couple times a week, at least once a week.
That's good. For me, I've been keeping it up, backed off from the 35-mile weeks down to 30, and that's been pretty good. It's real nice to run with you guys on Saturdays and get those long runs in together, because 2 hours listening to anything or listening to your own thoughts can get long.
Amen.
So that's been one of the better parts of it, and hopefully the weather will hold off and we'll still have the opportunities to do that with the cold, just because like we said when we were doing it, but sub 30 is just not ideal for running and not something we should do, not just because it's not comfortable, but you start sweating and then you're risking health and stuff for a run that doesn't have to be as long or doesn't have to take place necessarily. That's been going well. It's kind of like been waiting for when it's going to drop off. Kind of thought came into my head was from Princess Bride, when the Dread Pirate Roberts is telling Wesley, like, good night, sleep tight, I'll most likely kill you in the morning. My head's like, well, we're not sure if next week we're going to get the mileage in. So we got to get it in this week. And then it's like, oh, the next day comes. It's like, oh, we're probably not going to get it in next week. So we got to get it in this week. And kind of been doing that over and over again. So we'll see if eventually I become the Dread Pirate Roberts in this situation and or what happens. But it's been going pretty well.
Brett's being modest. I'm going to brag on him because he's not going to brag on himself. Brett's killing it. He's doing absolutely awesome. He PR'd again in his 5K. This dude is absolutely out there killing it.
Oh yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up. I was kind of one of my goals.
You deserve it, man.
Yeah,
I'd kind of forgotten about it. I thought Dan had done it.
No,
he was the one that had PR'd in the 5K and done all the things.
Nope, that's Brett, and he's on his third or fourth month of over 100 miles breaking like 120.
Yeah, this month I'm trying to get the 200K challenge in Strava. So, because next month, most likely I'll be killed in the morning. So, but it's been going well. Did run the 5K on Thanksgiving. My goal for 2024 was to get below 29 minutes for the 5K. When I was running it just the other day on Thanksgiving, I was like, getting under 30 would be great. And I was able to get 28:28 for it. So I'm going to have to look at my 2024 goals and update those based off of that. Transition over to our topics. Joe, yours was first. So
Okay.
looking at our favorite runs that we've had, if Joe, you want to start us off.
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to cheat. I have two. So I've lost all concept of time. It was not the Saturday that just happened. We're recording this on the 26th of November. It was not yesterday, but a week before that. I got to run for the very first time in an actual run, even though it was very simple production. It was an actual run with both of my older two kids, with Sophia and Noah. We did a turkey trot. They call it an eagle trot for their elementary school. And we did a mile around their school and track. And it was so much fun. That was a really good time. Now, it was on the heels of a long run that we had just done. I drove from the long run. What was our long run last week? Was it 10 miles?
10 and a half.
11. 10 and a half.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
10 and a half miles, and then rode in the car for a little while, got home long enough to warm up because we were wet and it was super cold, change clothes, and then go back over there. So they had like a chute set up where they had just like one of those inflatable wavy arm guys. And as soon as my body started moving, I instantly felt pain and discomfort and extreme stiffness. But the run was awesome. Maybe my favorite thing about it, as they're going through the instructions and we're in the chute, my daughter, Sophie, looks at me and says, I have to go to the bathroom. We are 2 minutes from our house. This is a 1 mile run. We showed up at go time and we're going to be leaving in 14 minutes. And so when they say go, we go inside and then we come back out and start later than everybody else. Both of my kids, and I had spoken to them about it before, both of my kids take off full speed sprinting, just going as fast as they humanly possibly can. And so I say, hey guys, let's slow down just a touch. And that way maybe we can run for longer before we need a break. Pish posh, they take off, right? We get almost to the edge of the building, maybe 70 meters. Noah grabs his side, starts heaving. Oh, Dad, I think I'm going to die. And just cramps and walks. Sophie looks at me like she's about to vomit. I again reiterate my advice. Why don't we take it slow for just a minute and see what you guys think? And we'll pick it back up as we're able. Not interested. Full speed sprint. As soon as they recover, we get to the quote unquote aid station, which is just Dixie cups full of water. It was super cute. This was at, I guess, a half mile. Sophie grabs a full cup of water, chugs it as fast as she can, and says, my PE teacher said, if you drink a lot of water, you can't cramp. Knowing what is about to happen, she crushes the cup on her forehead like an animal and takes off sprinting. 10 meters later, is doubled over at the waist, just writhing in pain and anguish. I don't get it. I drank so much water so fast. So it was an awesome experience.
That's great.
Pause that one. And I'm going to talk about my selfish favorite run right before we did the half marathon on the plan. There is a 2 mile run, and it is a recovery run, an easy run. The day before, was it one day before the half, or was it two? I don't remember. Not really the point. But I made sure that I woke up because I had to work that day. It was either a Thursday or a Friday. I made sure to wake up extra early and go to one of my favorite spots to run and really just take time and enjoy it and watch the sun come up over the river. I ran from a parking lot across the bridge and got to watch the sun come up, went 2 miles, turned around, came 2 miles back, and I was cheesy smiling almost the whole time because we had gone through an entire half marathon plan. We hadn't run the half yet, but this is coming off of right before that doing a 10K, which I was positive I would never do. right before that doing a 5K, which I did begrudgingly because my friends gave me some positive peer pressure and encouraged me to do it and stuck with me. And so at somewhere in between the 10K and the half marathon, I kind of fell in love with running and the time that you get to spend and the way that it feels and the recovery and all of those things. And it finally struck me how fortunate I am, how blessed I am to have the opportunity to use my body this way, to have the time to do it, the support from my family to go and do it. And I just ran slow and easy and just smiled the entire time. And that was a wonderful, wonderful run.
Love
Okay,
it.
Dan, how about you?
So for me, there's so many. But I'd have to say probably my favorite one was probably the actual half marathon we ran. Just that was the first time I ever did any kind of event like that. And the run itself, I mean, felt great throughout the whole thing. I mean, we had our moments where it was hard, hit a wall, legs cramping up. But when we got to that last like quarter mile and just realizing like all the work that we put in and then seeing the kids like Mandy, Rachel, and the kids holding up signs and getting ready to cross that finish line, it was just like I don't know if you remember, Joe, like you say about that feeling you got with that 2 mile run, like realizing all that work you put in. Like I kind of mentioned that to Joe as we're coming, like here we are, man, like this is it. This is what we've been working so hard for. This is the moment, we get to cross this finish line. So like having the kids there, like letting them see all the hard work, because they just see dad leaving on a run or our dad's got to run again, so for them to be there and see that and see us cross that finish line and come up and run up to us, and I think we turned around because like Nike kind of messed us up again, where me and Joe just kept going past the finish line because we're like waiting for the audio run to stop. But when we turn around, just Parker and Noah just running up the hill towards us, like all excited to come greet us. So I'd have to say that was probably my top favorite run. The only thing I would say that would have made it better was if Brett was there with us that day. But I mean, there's so many great runs, that we've all been on together. That's what I love doing the long runs on Saturdays where we can all three get together and do them.
Yeah, it would have been so much better if the race got shut down for toxic waste. For me, probably my favorite run. It's like I still got some couple of those where obviously Max isn't big enough to actually be running with me, but there's several runs where I've come to the finish and he comes running up to the street corner or whatever and wants to run with me. So those ones are always special too.
Yeah.
Just because like he's getting excited about it and like he just wants to run. He's like, and now he'll say like, "Daddy's fast."
Yes, he is.
Which is super cute.
It.
Kind of hard to pick the runs. Any of the ones we do together are always kind of, no matter what happens, it's fun still. But the one which was similar, almost the same route that we just did the other day, the first time me and Dan ran the Al Foster Trail over by the Merrimack, just how pretty the scenery was. And like we said, we wish we would have done it a week earlier, just because with the fall, the leaves changing, we had kind of hit it where quite a few of the leaves had already fallen. But it was just such a pretty thing, or pretty scenery to look at. And of course, Dan was there, so that added to it. But
I knew it was coming.
It's definitely been one of the best things, like not only being together, but also just getting to enjoy God's creation and seeing it in different places that we wouldn't be seeing. Because even if we were just walking, like you're not covering 10 miles walking, like it would just take too long and all that. So being able to run and enjoy it and all the different places we've been has just been one of the best parts. And that's been one of my favorite runs that we've gone on, just for the scenery.
Yeah, how many times have we commented on that we got to see stuff over and over again that we would never have seen, whether it be on a vacation or part of a trail, or like you're talking about going out of our way to go somewhere. Like we wouldn't have seen that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I just even think the bridge run where it's like, yeah, you can drive your car over it, but it's just different when you're on foot doing it. Like, and he knows it's the same view. Like you're just, instead of being in a car over here, and maybe some of it is like you had to work for it too. And so that's some of the payoff you get from it, but it's definitely been just neat to see things. And it doesn't have to be this crazy, like photo worthy scenery or anything, but just so much of it's just so amazing, so nice to look at. And it's like you take a picture of it and you're like, yeah, it's neat to show, but it's like you should have been there. So many of them, it's like,
Oh
oh, you
yeah.
had to see it. On to my topic, what I chose to talk about was kind of running gear. So some of the stuff that we've used along the way that has really helped us out, or that is beneficial for maybe short runs, long runs, like recovery, kind of anything that helps us with our running. And for me, the thing I chose was the water backpack, or a camelbak. So I had bought one probably 18 months ago or so now. Me and my family, we were going down to the Smoky Mountains and going hiking. And I was like, I don't want to carry a water bottle, and how much I sweat, I'm going to need some liquid to replenish while going hiking and stuff. Because my older brother Eric, he's really into hiking, so we weren't going to just go on a little easy paved trail that was a mile down and a mile back. Like, we were going to go to a serious hike, and that was another one where we got to see some serious views. But having that and being able to drink water fairly easy, and it's not awkward to carry. A lot of the time I don't even notice it now, and pretty much anytime I go over 7 miles, really, I'm using it. And I'll put electrolytes in there if I need. Sometimes it's just regular water, but you can get 1,500 milliliters, 2,000 milliliters, and it's just really helpful. And it's like you don't have to worry about, oh, how am I going to stay hydrated? Early on, I'd get headaches from dehydration after runs, and that really made it harder to run, because it's like, oh, if I'm going to feel miserable after. But with the water backpack, I feel the recovery is easier. It's better. I'm not getting those headaches, and if I do, it's not as bad. And that's been really helpful for extending the runs, because one of the drawbacks from the longer runs is like, well, if I'm miserable after, I don't want to put that on the family. Oh, I was gone for 2 hours or whatever to run, but you really lost me for the whole day because I'm useless after. That's definitely, I would recommend, if you're looking for longer runs. It's not a lot to carry. You're not having to carry it in your hand. Your hands are free, so you're still able to pump them. But it's definitely been useful, and I know all three of us have used one.
I find that if I'm useless before the runs, then the expectation is so much lower that I'm allowed to be useless after the runs also.
Uh,
Dan, if you want to share your item.
I use that same thing. I use a water backpack, but the other item that I really like using is my you guys know I carry that I got a little Nathan's water bottle that carry in my hand. It's got a little strap on it with a little pouch. I keep that with electrolytes. I keep that separate because I like to have my water in the backpack, and I like to still take in some electrolytes to get replenish my salts. But it's also real convenient because it's got that little pouch, and I'm able to fold up and get all my gels in there, so they're easy to access. I know a lot of people hate drinking water, like my wife and kids. They always got to have flavor in their water, like the flavor packets. But I like I can drink water all day, no problem. I like water. I do take electrolytes too, so I didn't want to put my electrolytes in the water backpack where I got like almost a half gallon of electrolytes, so I keep that water in there separate. But that Nathan's water bottle, I use that on all my long runs. I think a couple weeks ago I went 1 week without it, and I could tell a difference in how I felt later on that day by not drinking the electrolytes throughout the run. I had a slight headache later on that day. I just felt like my recovery wasn't as good. But yeah, I like sipping on that, and like I said, it's convenient. It holds tightly to my hand with the little pouch encased around it, and it holds all my gels.
Joe, you want to share your item?
So I thought about several things, as I always do, and I overthought it, as I like to do. That's a personal preference of mine. I think I settled on, while it's not technically gear, it's something that I find crazy important during the longer runs that we do. If I'm out more than 90 minutes, I really want some sort of calorie intake. And so I'm going to go with the Huma gels. There are, the Goo brand, the Humas. There's different options that you have. Some people like the wafers, the gummies, whatever it is. But those things are the most palatable to me. The flavors are decent, and the impact it has mid-run, for me personally, cannot be understated. It's totally the difference between hitting a wall on a 2-hour run and continuing my run, and in fact, getting a little boost of energy. I thought it would be hard to consume something while I was running. I thought that would be a recipe for disaster, but it took almost no getting used to at all. And I don't think that I've had one of their flavors that I absolutely didn't like. The consistency takes a minute to get used to, but I think it's my preference to turn to those over the goo brand, but they're both functional. I'm not trying to be anti-goo. I'm just saying I think that those are my personal preference. The apple one especially is pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've all been taking those. And I remember the first run I took because we all went to Fleet Feet, and I think Dan actually bought me my first couple. Like it was the second 10-mile run we were doing because you had done it on the first 10-mile run. So we were testing them out and stuff. And like I ran my fastest 10K in the second half of the second half. Obviously, it doesn't quite compute to that, but the second half of my 10-mile run, I ran my fastest 10K to that point. Wasn't like I'm used to like slowing down in the second half of the run, and I was actually speeding up. And kind of as we've taken them more and more, the Huma definitely is easier to take down while you're running than the goose. That is kind of what we've all come across. Although the goos are a little bit cheaper and they definitely work. Every time I've taken them, they've worked fine. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just like I feel like I have to slow down just a tad. It's probably not even really noticeable from like my mileage time perspective, but it is hard to kind of swallow those just because they're thicker, while the Huma is a little more liquidy.
Yeah, I'd say the Huma for me too is probably my favorite. The goose I can tolerate, but I also got to take a drink right after just to kind of wash it down. The Huma is like Joe said, there hasn't been a flavor that I've got. Whenever Joe got that first apple and cinnamon, I'd heard somebody talking about that one, and when I went in there, they had, I mean, just all they had blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, and I was like, you know what? Let's just get a variety of them, and test them all out, see how I like them. Literally every single flavor I took, I was like, man, this is amazing. This is way better than those goose. So I think, like Joe said last week, it's worth paying a little bit more money to take something that you like.
Let's go ahead and move on to Dan's topic for the week. He is running on vacation. I'll let Dan expand upon that a little bit more, but if you want to go ahead and take it away, Dan.
So running on vacation, the reason I picked this topic is you guys kind of touched on it with your favorite runs, and some of the stuff that we've gotten to see, even just being at home, some of the views, some of the areas we've got to see going on these long runs. And when we were in Florida, that really was neat because there was multiple places when we went on our runs that we would have never saw had we not planned it out to go to those places to do those runs. Like I think back to the bridge run, I think of the run we did around that lagoon, all the scenery we got to take in and see that morning. And I think about, like, I reflect back on like vacations that I've taken in the past. Like, I mean, ever since I can remember being a kid, especially with the family now with the kids, I'm always the one that, I work so much that when it comes to vacations, like, man, this is my relaxing time. This is my time to sleep in. And I'd always be the last one that they'd have to fight to get out of bed to go do whatever we had planned for that day. So just getting up early, getting out there and seeing, beautiful scenery and areas that we would never see, and going on those runs together, and then finishing those and getting back as the family's waking up and we're already kind of ready to go to where we just got to take a shower and get ready. And a big game changer for me to where, like, I think I'd probably do it every time I go on vacation, even if it wasn't vacations where I'm not with you guys. But I mean, I look forward to the Vesties trip every year. So I look forward to more runs like that. But yeah, just not sitting around laying in bed all morning, last minute getting up and actually getting out there and doing something has been great. So that's what I love about running on vacation.
Me and Joe, we don't get to necessarily see beautiful scenery all the time. I know all you have to do is wake up and walk over to a mirror, but it's definitely been one of the benefits of the long runs. And like there definitely is something about like those early morning runs as the sun's rising and getting to see different things, and knowing like that we're going to do stuff and we're getting to see things that we wouldn't have just without running. And because there's no way we would have seen several different things that we went and saw while we were in Pensacola if we weren't running together, because it just wouldn't have been on our things to do. Like we wouldn't have taken the family for a walk around the kind of the cove there, or the lagoon, or whatever it technically was, but it was so pretty running by the water and stuff. And I think if everything goes to plan and Lord willing, if when we go down for Challenge Youth Conference down in Pigeon Forge, if we're able to run Cades Cove, well, I have driven through there. I feel like it'll be a different experience if we are able to run it, and just being able to see that and kind of just the opportunities it gives us to see different things while we're out on vacation.
But think about that Cades Cove, like if you're going by it in a car, like yeah, you can appreciate that scenery. But you kind of touched on it the other day, like you would see it for like a minute, couple minutes, however long it takes you to drive down that. We're getting to soak it in for like a couple hours,
And I think some of it too, like at least when I've been to Cades Cove, it feels like I'm getting out of a parking garage. Like so much of it is like, oh, I want to watch that, but there's 600 cars behind me, and with the run, like we can take our time, we can enjoy it. We're not moving that fast. I mean, anybody that's been to Cades Cove knows like when it's busy, you're not moving too fast. Well, somehow we run slower, but we'll get to enjoy it, and it won't be on like we won't have to be worrying about the car in front of us or whatever necessarily, or oh, are we taking up too much time for the person behind us and stuff like that. We'll just be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, I was going to say my first experience with running on vacation was at Disney World. So I jumped straight into it full speed. And there were some things that I planned for, because I took a bag and I took running shoes and I took several outfits just for running, and I took my water backpack, I took, my belt that I throw my phone in so it's not flopping around in my pocket. Like I took all of those things. But one of the things you don't have access to in every single vacation scenario is laundry service. And so I immediately figured out that if I'm going to be somewhere, so we stopped and spent the night because we've got 3 small kids. It was kind of hard for us to do the night in the car all the way down to Orlando from St. Louis. So we stopped halfway down there, and I found a place to run that was fine. It was a sidewalk of the town that we were in. It looked relatively safe. I went out the next morning, early in the morning, and the sun had come up, and I ran. But then when I got back to the hotel was the first time it dawned on me, these clothes are soaking wet, and I have to find a place to put them in the car. So it's not the end of the world. You just grab a trash bag or a plastic bag, throw them in there. But now they're riding the rest of the way to Florida with us in the car, kind of funky. And then when I get there, the same problem happened. So we actually, while we were at Disney, even though we had packed 2 outfits per day, I had packed 4 running outfits, because I was like, well, we're doing 5 runs a week. I can wear one twice. It won't be that big a deal. I'll just hang it up to dry. But by the end of the 3rd day, somehow I had gone through everything. And so I had to find a place to do laundry. Like you guys have said, though, I was concerned initially about just Disney World being the nature of what it is, the way that my family desires to do it. And by that, I mean my wife. We have to be there before the employees arrive or it doesn't count. So I was waking up absurdly early for a vacation, but doing my run first and then coming back and doing my first cup of coffee after that was such a good way to start the day. I wasn't starting out groggy and fussy and grumpy. If I was fussy, I was doing it on my own, trying to figure out what roads were safe to run on, because inside the resort area, there wasn't a ton of options. So I just ran down a sidewalk. They had a quote unquote running trail. It was a sidewalk, I think it gave me an appreciation for the rest of the day much more than I expected, because I was initially concerned about just getting tired from it. And that didn't happen at all. There was one day that we did, I don't know, 25,000 steps at Epcot, and I had done another 8,000 or 9,000 steps on my run because it was a longer run. And that day was a little bit challenging from a soreness standpoint, but I never felt like it took anything away from my family. I never felt at any time like it took anything away from my family. And I felt like it only added to the trip. It gave me a few minutes to wake up, to get refreshed and ready to go. It gave me an opportunity, as you guys have talked about several times and we've all mentioned, to see something that's a little bit different, and to do it at a pace where you're going to have to see it. Sometimes driving in a car, you're focused on operating the vehicle. You're focused on where you need to go and what turn you need to make. When you're running, those things happen so much slower. You're forced to appreciate what you're looking at. And it's been a true blessing. As Dan said, I don't know if I ever want to go on vacation and not go out for a run again, even a short one.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, kind of touching on that, I just had that the other day. A road that I take home, you say like there's things that you might not see. I was coming home from work and like if traffic's backed up on 40, I'll get off at Lake St. Louis Boulevard and just cut that all the way across to the house. And I've done that hundreds of times, driving home from work whenever traffic's backed up. And just the other day, I just happened to look over and I drove past and there was this off that road. There was just this little court with like 3 huge houses there and beautiful houses. And I look over and I'm like, I've never even noticed that court right off of this road right here with those 3, like in a small court, and each one of them that beautiful. I was like, I never even noticed those were there, like because there's a couple trees there, but like I've drove that. I would have if I would have been running down that trail, I would have noticed them right away. So yeah, like you just kind of touched on this. You got so much more time to take those things in and appreciate them.
Yeah, one of the things too, when I mentioned with running on vacation, probably don't run your longest run that you've ever done while on vacation and expect to do anything that day. We, the geniuses that we are, the Thursday of our week-long vacation, we're going, our half marathon plan calls for an 8-mile run. So we're going on an 8-mile run. It's across one of the bridges in Pensacola, which is about, what was it, about 3 miles across, something like
No,
that.
it was
That was
almost
4.
an even 4 because it was over and back was the entire run.
I thought we had like a little
There
bit
was a little
going
bit
back
to
to
that
the,
parking lot, but I don't think
but
it was a
it
full half mile worth. Maybe. I don't know.
so I mean, regardless, it was 3+ miles across, and so we're running that. So we do that first thing in the morning, and I'm pretty sure it was me that was pushing it. Like, oh, we still need to go to the beach. We're on vacation. We need to make the most of this. And we go to the beach. I want to do absolutely nothing. I'm just simple tasks I'm being asked to do. I do not want to do. Do you want to go to the water? No, I don't want to move from this chair. Can you do this? Like, it's not like asking me to go back to the car to get something, go dig dig a trench like Dan was digging with the kids. Like, just anything. It's like, will you move 3 inches to the right? No. But some not completely ruined the day, but definitely made the day less enjoyable at the beach and stuff for
Yeah,
everyone
we didn't stay
else.
there that long. We didn't stay there that long
No,
that day.
no. Dan and I at the time of this vacation both had 3 kids, with all 3 of us having one, in that 2 to 3 range. And man, the beach with a bunch of little kids is not a relaxing event, regardless. But that day especially, I mean,
We all got
we
headaches.
yeah, we experienced something. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
we all had headaches.
we all
Yeah,
had headaches. We all went back. We took ibuprofen or whatever and took naps. And that's what
hmm
we should have done immediately after. We should have went back and took naps. And so my like tip for that is be aware what you're going into if you're going to run on vacation, what the run's going to do to you. And if possible, don't have the longest run you ever run be on vacation
Right.
unless
good
you're
tip.
wholly prepared for that day to be given to that run.
Yeah, that's a good tip. We made a good adjustment though. After that, we wised up a small enough amount to run late the night before we left, rather than get up and drive all the way home to St. Louis from Pensacola. We ran super late that night, the next day or whatever it was.
Sprints. And
Yeah, we did sprints at midnight out in front of the Airbnb.
one thing though, I think with that 8-mile run though, I think that was before we were learning the importance of electrolytes and refueling. I think
Yeah,
what we've learned along the way, had we known that stuff better, probably would have made the rest of that day a lot different also.
that's probably true.
And we still had our water backpacks, and I think I used liquid IV, but it was definitely like I didn't know why liquid IV. Like I knew about electrolytes from playing sports, but like I didn't really know. I just knew it
Mm.
was something you should consume. I didn't understand
Right.
really what it did and stuff, and like kind of what to look for in the ones you're getting and what causes headaches and stuff, being low on sodium and different things. But
Well, and with the
but
temperature, we
definitely,
sweated a lot more,
oh yeah,
especially
and
Brett.
it didn't help that, like, and he knows it was early in the morning. It was still warm, and the way out across the bridge, the breeze must have been at our back, but it was just light enough where it was pretty much just the same speed that we were running.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like nothing. So you're just cooking in the sun. The bridge seems like it's 70 miles long.
Yeah.
You're just being cooked. The way back, you're running into it, and it's like, okay, like I can make it back now, because there were times where it's like you're running down the one side. It's like, should I just turn around and head back to the car at this point?
Funny story on that one though. We got to share about Brett with the water bottle. That was I think that 8 mile run was the first time that me and Joe could really appreciate how much you are able to sweat. Like Joe jokes about, it being your superpower. I'll never forget the day because we got done just a tad before you, and there was a gas station right there. And I'm like, I'm going to get us some water and Gatorade. And Joe's like, I'm gonna stand here and wait for Brett to greet him when he gets back, And I was like, okay. So I get back and I hand you that water bottle, and I'll never forget walking behind you. I'm going, man, this dude is sweating like crazy. And you had already opened the water bottle, but I could not tell. The sweat was dripping down the back of your arm so much that I couldn't tell. I thought the water bottle was open and that it was like just leaking out the water bottle. I'm like, oh, he didn't put the cap back on all the way. And I'm like, wait, no, that's sweat literally dripping down his arm off the edge of the water bottle. But it was hot, super hot out that day too. I mean, we got out there early, but that sun came out and it hit you hard.
One of the things with that run being on the bridge is just there's no reprieve from the sun. It's just
No.
there the whole time.
Yeah,
There was nothing stopping it.
No
There's
cover.
like one of the things, a lot of the runs we do around here, because like if you run by the river or if you run pretty much anywhere, like you're going to go through some wooded area at some point or some tree coverage. So a lot of the runs we get, especially the longer runs, we're pretty good about getting some tree coverage.
Yeah, there was nothing out there to protect us except for what we had on our bodies. Like we were running beside this road. The bridge was it was a drive over bridge. That's what its intended purpose is. And then there's a path to the side of it, like a sidewalk, but it was separated by a concrete median. And we all commented on it. We're probably going to feel some wind from the cars as we're going over and back across this thing. I couldn't feel a thing. Like you said, it was so stagnant and still, and the sun was maybe 14 feet away from us is the way that it felt.
Well, and that wall we weren't as high above the wall as we thought we would be. Like,
no, we were kind of
the
below
cars
it.
where we could get the draft from the cars.
Yeah, Dan and I didn't feel it for sure. It was probably only to Brett's knee.
We'd even purposely ran on the other side, so we'd be like running against traffic.
Yeah, that's true.
Like so potentially we would feel it and it wouldn't be behind us or whatever. And it had to be an 18-wheeler to even feel like somebody just going
even just like
right. Overthought direction, underthought impact.
On the way back, it like that little breeze definitely had a nice impact. Not to mention the big, call it a hill in the middle, so that larger ships could get under the bridge. Having to run that twice, which that's also what we used to run our hill workout, because it turns out when you go to Florida, there's not many hills to actually run on.
No, they keep them hidden away.
They're all underwater.
I thought we all were after we were walking behind Brett.
I joke that you can't tell if I jumped in or or not by the end of my runs a lot of the 100%
time. True. When you sit down and you don't just leave an imprint, you leave a puddle. That's when you know.
When you see the water on Google Maps the next time you're mapping around from where you sat, you sweat a lot.
Oh, that's great.
There's a new pond there. That was what we kind of had to go over for this one. Want to put the message out for anybody that's listening, mostly the people that are nice enough to listen to us at this point and not say mean things about us. But
well, not about this anyway.
Yeah, at least not to our faces.
Right.
There's anything you guys want to, any of our listeners want to hear us talk about, our wives potentially, our kids.
I love that you think our wives are listening.
if they're being forced to listen to, blink twice. Blink twice if you're okay. But anybody out there that's listening, if they want to, anything that we want to talk about, any suggestions, anything that maybe they've done, or just anything for the podcast in general, anything they'd like to see done with it, we're definitely open to any ideas. Sponsorships, please reach out to Dan, because you're going to have to work with him. Me and Joe are pretty cheap, but beauty ain't cheap. So you're going to have to work with Dan on getting him to sponsor any of your products or anything. Yep. So we're going to go ahead and give our one share item for this episode. I'll go ahead and start us off for this one. As a podcast, we're kind of branching out. We have our YouTube page, which as of right now is the only way people are listening to us, but we're also reaching out to the other social medias. So on X, or the artist formerly known as Twitter, we have a Twitter page now. One of our first posts is of Dan. That is maybe why most of you have gotten to this point of listening to us. You saw his picture and thought it was worth
It's not a very appealing picture.
Maybe if it was the rest of us, but there is no unappealing picture of you. So so that is my share for this week. It is our X account, 0 to 0 pod. The link will be in the show notes or in the description here on YouTube. Joe, if you want to give your share.
Yep, I'm branching out in life and finally becoming an Instagramite. And so I am running our Instagram for the podcast. The link, as Brett said about the other, will be in the description below.
And then Dan, you want to give your share?
My share will be the Facebook page. We also created a Facebook page that I will be taking care of. Joe and Brett also have access to it, so they'll be able to interact with everybody on there too. And that link will also be in the description.
Thank you, boys. So everybody, please check out all our other socials if you so desire. We will be trying to post more and learn actually how to use them. We
no promise
aren't old enough to be boomers, but we certainly act like them.
I'm kidding.
I said we're millennials cosplaying as boomers, but we'll be active on there. I mean, especially for the women listening, we'll make sure pictures of Dan make it out there frequently.
That's a dork.
I mean, hey, if we're ever going to get monetized, we got to go where the money's at.
Episode 3.
Episode 3 in the books.